Digital ladies breaking the chain, rising in crypto, we're changing the game. Crypto frontier, we're claiming our space. Not your keys, not your crypto, know your place. Unscripted, we're bold, we're free. Melissa Key, the Lady K, and Opti Dipito, come ride this wave. Digital wealth, we're here to pay.
Crypto nights, we're lighting the spark. As we ignite now, we're setting the mark.
Safety first, we're keeping it tight. Blockchain power, we're shining the light. Unscripted, we're bold, we're free. Melissa Key, the Lady K, and Opti Dipito, come ride this wave.
Welcome to Digital Ladies Unscripted, the show where we dive deep into digital assets and cryptocurrencies from a lady's point of view. I'm Melissa, and I'm joined with my beautiful co-hosts, Keita, Lady K, and Optimistic Prime, Amanda. How you doing this evening, ladies?
Excellent.
Oh, it's so good to be back. You guys did fantastic. I was listening in. I actually listened to it a couple of times. You guys did just a fantastic job last week, and I really appreciate you holding down the fort when I wasn't able. And hopefully I'll have a voice here for the remainder of the show. But yeah, guys, tonight, well, let's get real. Crypto's bleeding red. Bitcoin crashed from 2025 highs to over, what was it, like $126,000 or something. And right now, I looked it up, it was at $68,885. And it's been fueled by panic selling, the leverage liquidations that's been going on. There's been that nasty multi-month dip that we've all experienced. And everybody's starting to asking, is this another crypto winner? But then also the latest release of the Epstein files, which I kind of looked into a little bit, and it has Epstein's early bets on the $3 million into Coinbase in 2014. He has ties to the Blockstream folks. He had funding at MIT's Bitcoin research. And you have to wonder, is this old predator money bubbling up at the worst time? They're cranking out FUD and memes, tainted memes everywhere saying, you have to wonder, is this a coordinated attack on the momentum that we were feeling there a couple of months ago? Or is this just a regular cycle shakeout that we've all experienced before? So tonight, I thought we would talk about it, cut through the noise a little bit, no hype, no doom. Maybe talk a little bit about what's in those Epstein files and ask the big question, is this evidence of some kind of systematic control in crypto, or is it just uncomfortable history resurfacing from these Epstein files? And then maybe try to break down why you think the market's melting down right now. Are there key macro triggers that are driving it? And also explore whether these dips are classic temporary tests that we've all went through, tests of our conviction. Because I've always said, panic sellers fold, believers stack discounts, and history shows HODLing wins when you stay calm and positioned. What do you guys think?
I think there's blood in the streets right now.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, there is, but here's the thing, people tend to forget that XRP was in consolidation for how many years? At the same price. Like
we treated ourselves, didn't we?
We did, I mean, at the end of the day, we are way further ahead than we were when I got into this. So I think it's a relative thing. And I think what it is people want what they want when they want it. And well, because it's not when they want it, it's a problem. You see what I'm saying? If they actually saw a little bit of price movement, they'd be okay. But this is a mental game. and I think that in a lot of instances, there's so many. Yay! I saw
Shout
that,
out,
Miss
Mike
Mike
Lab.
Lab.
Either coming to there's going to be perks coming with that membership, Mike
Love
Lab.
it.
So fantastic. Thank you, my friend.
Love
Sorry,
that.
keep going.
Yeah, but I just find it very interesting that people's convictions when they got into this were one thing. And now that this has actually become an actual real deal Holyfield investment, this is the part where they just can't seem to rationalize it, I guess. And they just have their own expectations that they are just imposing upon this asset, and the asset is doing truthfully what it's supposed to be doing.
Mm, mm. What do you guys think, Lady K and Apti?
You want to go first, Opti?
Sure. I mean, I think what your opening was pretty mic droppy. I was like a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Maybe some sprinkle of column C. I mean, I'm always so curious. I was, James and I were trying to talk about, like where does the money go when it goes, and these kinds of things. I mean, one of the things like as silver is going up so much. One of the things we were talking about is like silver's not really going up. Gold isn't really going up. It's like actually the dollar is going down, right? Like with inflation and just the overprinting of money. And then the shakeout that's been happening with like this push to end the Fed, which I've been following the US debt clock images since 2024 when they first started, and it's been painting this slow, gradual picture of a shift back to real assets and treasury dollars and the disparate, I don't know if there's a proper word here, but between the M2 money supply and, there's just so much shaking out here. And then, going back to Dan Pena, 2020, him talking about, if you knew who created these things, specifically Bitcoin, you would want to get rid of it. And I think, that's what's so fascinating. Now, we've seen huge fluctuations over the past 8 years, obviously. And every year it seems like, we think we're so late. For me personally, I've thought I was so late since 2020. And, every year that passes, I'm just like, oh my goodness, I had no idea, it's going to be another decade.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's just, I think that it's, I think we're in cycles upon cycles. I think we're in a 250-year cycle with you guys turning 250 years old, and what that means for how people organized and what's good. I think we're seeing a shakeout of disclosure, and I'm a truther, so I'll keep it tame in this conversation, but come to the after dark space, I might get a little bit more spicy and in terms of the controversial stuff that I know. Because I'm cheering the truthing, while people are sort of falling apart on the truthing and what's happening and finding out, these things, these ties to the nefarious, the dark web and things like that. These are the things I knew before I got into crypto, and it's what scared me about crypto. And it was really, the journey to Stellar and XRP and finding you guys. That was the only thing that kept me in crypto because of the people I met. And so I was like, whatever the reasoning behind crypto and the background of the past and the nefariousness, I believe that we, heaven on earth is possible together. And so I think we're seeing shifts all around in family dynamics and asset dynamics and macroeconomics and microeconomics and, people, I was thinking today, for me personally, I had to sell during this time because I need to pay for Wix, and if I let it drop too much further, every time it drops, it's a little bit less money. And so either you got the small retail person like me, who only has a couple $1,000s worth of crypto selling just to make ends meet too. And I was thinking, how many how much of this is big money from like, people who have billions of dollars doing a shakeout versus the little guy like me who's like, man, I need to pay my bills. Like I was expecting this to go up a little bit more by now, So I think a lot of different aspects are sort of fueling it, and I'm excited about what's happening. Even though it's dropping, I'm sort of excited about the shakeout and what happens from here. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah,
It's funny that you say that, Opti, because I'm going to be honest, that when we had that big dip, when it went down to like $1.11, I think it was something like that. I truthfully, in a lot of instances, I kind of was like, okay, well, maybe this is just, institutions buying in. They don't want to buy at the top. They don't want to buy at the bottom. Of course, they want there to be some type of liquidity there, right? But at the same time, I just feel like there's so much of it that is okay. They've got these wicks that are here on these candles, and all those are buy orders. They're buy orders that have been set limit orders, and these people are getting liquidated, or there are people that are gambling against the market so that they can leverage. And we literally have seen people that are like experienced traders get just
wrecked.
Like when you've got somebody that has a financial like vehicle out there and they're liquidated, people are scared now. You know what I mean? People legitimately have fear. And I know you're going to go into the, fear and greed index, but this is really just psychological warfare, I feel like.
Well, and I do want to touch a little bit on the Epstein files. But before we get to that point, Lady K, I wonder, like, what are your thoughts at the top of the show here?
I'm really surprised to see what the market's doing right now, because like all indicators and it just community sentiment to me feels like a bear market, right? And I don't feel like we went through a true bull market. Like we were waiting for the bull run, and then I feel like we sort of hit like bear market territory, right? In the sense where we were seeing people get wrecked, we're seeing people get liquidated. The fear and index greed is down again, and we haven't seen that since like 2022. Like everything that's happening feels like we're headed down again, and it's just surprising. And why is it? I don't know. Like, is it the Epstein files? Probably not. Were the Epstein files dropped to distract us from what's happening? Probably.
Well,
something's happening. Like we were headed in a good direction, and we just got stonewalled.
Well, I was going to ask a question about that. Okay, because one thing that Opti did state was about the comment about, well, I already know who started Bitcoin, and if y'all knew y'all sell, this thing would go straight to zero.
Opinion,
so I have a
his humble opinion.
In his humble opinion, right? And this is, listen, I don't wish for that to happen. I don't. Okay. However, if you take a look at Bitcoin as a whole, right, and just realize that Bitcoin's success is community driven. Like this is a community thing. Like they believe that this is their religion. This is what they do. This is how they do it. I'm not mad at it. Hey, listen, you like it. I love it. But when it goes down, don't say nothing. I'm just saying, because when it goes down, it's going to be okay, well, people are going to really be crushed, and the actual thought process of maybe you should diversify. Maybe you should be in some other things that have some utility, some other things that are doing some things. So build, learn, do something. I don't know. I don't know.
I'll tell you, so I've been following all this stuff for a really long time, and I came in through Bitcoin, and I have to say it, there is a narrative that was built, and people just lapped onto it. And They went after like the libertarian type movement, and all of the talking points in the story and the lore around it and all the things, because we've been so desperate for sovereignty, and we know the man is screwing us over, right? Like, like everyone talks about the man, taking over. I've often thought that Bitcoin was a trap. And for people that were doing illegal activity, I believe it was created by the government, or the NSA, whatever you want to say. People, the high tech folks that work for the government, basically, and maybe it's a collection of governments or whatever. But in any event, the original narrative of Bitcoin was that it was anonymous. And so you saw at the very beginnings with the Mt. Goxes and that sort of thing, where these folks were taking down Bitcoin seeds, they were doing illegal activities, and there's always that saying, these people are stupid, because they were moving around as if they were anonymous, thinking that Bitcoin was their, they were hiding behind it, creating criminal acts, doing, not all Bitcoin people were doing it. I don't want to misspeak by that whatsoever. And I do think that Bitcoin is salvageable. However, what we found, it like just even the tip of the iceberg. And guys, I haven't dug deeply into these Epstein files. I cheated and I asked what's been found. Okay. So, but I'm just going to mention a couple of things that I think we should talk about here before we move on to the more positive side of things, because it is kind of a, as you guys mentioned, the fear index is high. People are scared. They're losing their money. The economy is kind of tanking. People are needing money for their jobs. They're having to cash out their crypto. And so, we do have those cycles of shakeouts and whatnot. But I did not know, and there's evidence within the Epstein files, that Epstein donated hundreds of thousands, around 850,000 over years, plus facilitating millions more from others to MIT's Media Lab. I didn't know that. Yeah. They also supported the digital currency initiative that were described in the 2015 emails as Bitcoin's principal home and funding source. And then some guy named Joichi Ito, which was a former Media Lab director, had thanked Epstein for gift funds enabling quick recruitment for Bitcoin development. And then analysis suggests this covered a significant portion of like 75% of Bitcoin core commits post 2015. So, and then on top of that, there was $3 million investment in Coinbase in 2014. And remember, all of these guys, like the Coinbase guy, the Kraken guy, all Caleb, all those guys, they all kind of were together early on. They like stayed in some room, like there's different
weren't they roommates or something like that?
Yeah, like there was a house, and I don't remember. I think it was in California.
Was it Nerioff? Was it Nerioff that where they were staying?
Well, that was ETH. That was a guy. Yes, but I'm talking about like when Bitcoin was first coming out, and the different people that were, or just in general, crypto in general. A lot of these people knew each other. They were
they ran in the same circles, but also we're talking about like, oh my gosh, how many people can actually like code this, right? So like that group of people is very small. And, you have to imagine that they were definitely talking to each other about possibilities and things of that nature, so.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're talking to a small group of folks that were working on this stuff. And so, while some people might blow these Epstein files off, they're, and all the controversy and the researchers and like, Optimistic Prime's a truth, or, those of us that have researched this kind of stuff and all of the crazy stuff that's been going on in the world. a lot of the posts, the truther posts have to do with the financial system, but a lot of people just didn't realize it had to do with the financial system. And so now we're tapping into these Epstein files, and you're discovering that Epstein was at the core of a lot. I mean, I saw interviews with him, Steve Bannon interviewing him, where he's talking about being in jail back in, like, what was it, 2008, when the
I
market
saw
crash
that
was.
one.
He's on one phone with JP Morgan Chase and the other one with I can't think of the name of who he was working for or working with. Stearns, Bear Stearns.
Bear Stearns.
Yeah, Bear Stearns, right? Well, okay, well, that's interesting, right? So, like, all this stuff, and then of course that's the time that Bitcoin's created, and so, like, all this stuff is very interesting. And so when you find in the Epstein files that he invested $3 million into Coinbase's Series C round through his entity IGO Company LLC, brokered by Brock Pierce, who was the Tether co-founder and an early Bitcoin figure, right? Then the Coinbase co-founder, Fred Ersham, he was aware and open to meeting with Epstein. And then Epstein later sold half his stake to Blockchain Capital for $15 million in 2018, potentially worth more than Coinbase's 2021 IPO. There was a $500,000 investment in Blockstream in 2014. And let's see what else. He funded a Bitcoin infrastructure company that focused on the side chains, which was the Lightning Network, with that $500,000. Let's see. Sorry, guys, I got a couple more. Co-founders Adam Back and Austin Hill were invited to meet Epstein near his private island. He had a fund co-owned with Joy Ito as part of an $18 million seed round. So the investment was later divested, they said, due to conflicts of interest. But in any event, and he also had emails discussing Bitcoin with Peter Thiel as whether it was a store of value versus a currency. And if you guys remember, also, there was a big push a couple years ago about whether Bitcoin was Sharia compliant. Do you guys remember that whole narrative?
Sharia law? You mean like
Sharia law compliant? Yes. It was a couple years ago, maybe. Gosh, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, I remember people were talking about it, and people are posting, is Bitcoin Sharia compliant, right? Well, apparently Epstein had something to do with pitching a Sharia compliant Bitcoin based to a Saudi advisor.
I just saw something where Maxwell was one of the top Reddit contributors. And that she basically gate-kept information into Reddit. And it's interesting that you're lining up like his emails to community sentiment, right? And like had the social media and, that's, now, did you see the email in the Epstein files where basically that guy was threatening Epstein if he made any investment into Stellar or the other guys? Do you see that one?
I do. Yeah, because it would be a conflict of interest, right? Like, it wouldn't look good if he was investing. And I don't remember who the email was, but yes.
Well, thankfully that happened, because now with these file drops and the outrage that so many people are feeling over it, not just in this country, but like all over the globe, right? Is there going to be this line of like moral divide? And what is going to happen to Bitcoin when people start drawing that line?
Well, has there ever been that type of a moral ground when it comes to the dollar?
Well, that's true, but this is big though, right? Like this is like bigger than that, right?
Well, I mean, you've got countries buying it, putting it in their treasuries, right? Mm-hmm. You have people, entities putting it for their their 401ks and stuff. We're talking about Bitcoin strategic reserve and all of this. And now don't get me wrong. I don't necessarily think that Bitcoin is going to go anywhere. Okay. I think ultimately it's embedded so deeply at this point that it is going to be a store of value, and they're using it to bring in, money into the new to the new system. Where it all ends up happening, like what ends up happening with it, I don't exactly know, but I do think that it's been a big fat trap. And so for all the people that committed crimes with Bitcoin are probably in quite a bit of trouble. And so, I know there's a lot of people that are frustrated and they're like, nothing's happening. And I'm like, well, yeah, we'll see about that. Okay. There's been a lot of sales that have happened years ago. Like, what was it? Was it the Rockefellers or I think it was the Rockefellers or the Rothschilds, one of those families. I know you're probably not supposed to mention those names on YouTube's, but one of those families sold off a bunch of property, and they don't do that, right? That was several years ago. That was when, a lot of investigations and like there's a lot of sealed indictments and all this kind of stuff. And whether it has to do anything with human trafficking or whatever, or whether it was just good old fashioned money laundering, playing little games, whatever the hell, doesn't matter. They've done some crimes with this money.
But we still don't know I don't know. I still think there's a possibility there are backdoors. We still don't know how they got that ransom back. We see the people that are involved in it. They're not good people, right? And do I think it's going to zero tomorrow? No, but you have people talking about it hitting a technological dead end, right? David Schwartz tweeted that out recently. And then now you have this wrapped up in the Epstein files where people are literally like up in arms about it. There's like this, you don't think that people aren't going to start drawing a moral line based on these files? Nobody thinks that?
I think,
I think so.
Yeah.
I think they already are.
Some people, here's the deal though. Unfortunately, the little guy that has opportunity in crypto, right? They're the ones drawing the moral lines, not the big industry money, right? Not the big industry money that's really playing with Bitcoin right now. The little guy who would have invested or even dipped their toe into crypto is now going, I don't know. I don't know if I want to get involved in it.
What is part of the value of currency or assets?
Say it again.
What is part of the formula value of currency or assets? It's confidence.
And a lot of people have confidence in Bitcoin, regardless of whether it's
it's getting shaken.
I was about to say, regardless of whether it's warranted or not, a lot of people do have it.
And it was
and it's waning.
But
that's waning right now.
For the reasons of it was first and highest in price, certainly not best ever, nothing like that. But if the tide shifts, especially with something like this, where now you add other things like, the morality or something, you guys don't think it will affect it at all?
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, I think that for sure. I mean, that's my personal experience. My personal experience is, okay, which one of these is the least corrupt that might be good, that could possibly be good if all the people banded together and decided to change the world together? Which one has the most even playing field? And that, I mean, like how I got into crypto and like the questions I was asking from the get-go, absolutely, I think that. And I think that for me, I mean, that's why I chose the ones I did, because they were the cheapest, easiest, and fastest to use. And so the little guy had more of a chance, in my opinion. I think there was also a document about, oh my gosh, I just had a blank. Dude who started the lawsuit, or who perpetuated the lawsuit. What's his name?
Talking about Jay Clayton?
No, other one.
Gary
The
Gensler.
guy who was the teacher at MIT or the program.
Gary Gensler.
Yeah. So there's another document with Epstein and that whole thing. And, I mean, me, I'm optimistic prime. I'm always looking at the positive to all negative things, And so for me during the whole lawsuit, I was like, well, a lot more people found XRP during that time, through that process, and like you guys were saying at the beginning, like we're so much better off at this point. But I mean, reverse 4 years ago, I was convinced that when people realized exactly when I heard what Dan Pena said, when I heard stories of like people back in the day getting little chits from 7-Eleven and then knocking on doors and dark alleys and getting their little card with Bitcoin, I was like, I'm sorry, what did you just tell me? That's how you got Bitcoin the very first time? Like, that sounds, dark webby. And, I started learning about what was, how dark the world really was. I was like, oh yeah, like, is there any possibility of using this technology for good, not for bad? And if people actually knew what their money was fine, just like you guys just said, our money supply now, it's all a Ponzi scheme. It's these rich families making a lot of money for you to work your butt off every single day, and they don't have to, and they get bored, and they, play psycho games with humanity because they're just getting paid to exist in the world because they, the Titanic wasn't an accident apparently, and all the people that were against the establishment of the Fed were on the boat, and all the people that wanted the Fed to happen were not on the boat. That's weird, That's weird. And so then when you start realizing like huge events in our history are tied to the money. And, like shout out Fruition Productions, Money Disrupted is coming out in the next week, where they actually interview the author of A Creature from Jekyll Island, which is the establishment of the Fed. If you guys don't know that story, I highly recommend you start, delving into like, how did we get here in the first place? How is the money that we all agree to use actually a Ponzi scheme? How is it that it's not of the people, by the people? Now, one of the things I find super fascinating is one of the other reasons I got into XRP is when I started listening to Linda P. Jones, and she was talking about how she actually thinks that Securities Commission shouldn't be the overbody of the XRP ledger. She was thinking it might be commodities, right? Which is sort of go back to what I was talking at the very beginning with the US debt clock and how they were sort of trying to create this image of like a basket of commodities backing like old school gold backed currency that was, old money used to be a voucher for gold. It had value. It retained its value because how much gold bought a house 100 years ago is about the same amount as how much gold buys a house now. Like, it's, even though for us, the exchange rate on the dollar is a little, very, very different. The value of things that are useful, i.e. commodities and precious metals, has a huge role in, how we are, the little guy lives, and our value of our money and how much effort we put in every day. And so I think I saw a post last week that like Brad Garlinghouse is now on the commodities. He said something was happening with the Commodities Commission in the States or something. Like there was something shifting around that. I can't remember exactly what it is. I don't know if you can bring it up, but I thought that was super interesting. And I even commented on X, like, funny, like I had a feeling that, this would shift eventually, and it might be shifting right now. So, shout out to Melissa when you're like, well, maybe, or one of you said, maybe it's the distraction of what's happening to the money that maybe Lady K. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on sort of your perspective on that, because I think it's a very interesting perspective.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up the Titanic, right? And how so many people think that event had to do with shaping, making the Federal Reserve happen. And it's like, are these bits and pieces that we're getting now, are we going to look back on it and go, okay, that's how everything was shaped within the crypto industry? It's interesting, right? I just wonder if the drop was timed to distract us because we were headed in a good direction, which I was surprised we're headed in a good direction because we never really crashed, right? The market the real estate market hasn't corrected like I thought it would. Like we didn't crash in any way that I thought we would. And I kept saying, we're either going to crash or they're going to manipulate us out of it. Okay. And this might be the crash that I thought was coming that I didn't see coming because I thought it was never going to end up happening because I waited so long for it. You know, if that makes any sense, it made sense in my head.
That part.
But I don't know. Maybe we're crashing and maybe this is just to try and distract, or maybe something else is happening and this is to try and distract.
I think it's definitely a distraction. You know, a lot of this stuff, those of us that have done a lot of research, we kind of already knew a lot of the things that are coming out in the Epstein files, right? But you and I were talking the other day, Lady K, you know, just about like those of us that have been here for a while, these cycles happen, right? These news events that come out, there's all kinds of ways that they use to manipulate the market, where there's blood in the streets, you know, and over history. That's what the quote unquote elite do. They buy the blood in the streets. So, you know, those of us that have been crypto, the most important thing that we start asking ourselves is like, what is money? How does this all work? Up is down, down is up, and all those types of things. The reverse is generally true. So, you know, what is it, that joke with the guy that he's like saying something is going to happen when he's on the news, and the Kramer, reverse Kramer effect, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, the last time I saw this kind of market sentiment, we were in a lot. XRP was in a lawsuit, right? I was being told XRP would never hit $1.
Never going to hit $1.
Right? We were
going to zero.
We were facing U.S. hostile, like the, you know, U.S. being hostile. Every digital currency Congress hearing was, you know, a nightmare. Like, I mean, it didn't look like we were getting regulations. The administration was completely against it and put a statement out that they were against it. And they were going after anyone, everyone. And so it was like, we were wondering if XRP was even going to survive, right? And now we're sitting at over $1, wondering if we're going to go back up. Of course, we're going to go back up. You know, I've been paying attention. We're in a way better position. We have a crypto-friendly administration. We finally have crypto regulations, which is going to cement it to be here to stay. We have a ton of things happening in the ecosystem. So, you know, this is a dip, but it's not forever.
Don't trip by the dip. You know, we've got about 20 minutes left, maybe 15, 18 minutes or whatever left. Why don't we talk about a little bit, like, you know, optimistic prime and the positive side of things, right? Because as we were talking the other day, like, this is a perfect opportunity to reevaluate your position that you're in, look at the projects that you've been looking into, or if you haven't dipped your toe yet, start looking now. Of course, none of the FOMO people are not screaming at the rooftops right now that you should buy. However, those projects that have dipped like this is a perfect opportunity to buy that dip, dollar cost average in, lower your entry point, you know, overall. And, you know, like Simon and I were talking the other day, I had a really bad experience with Theta. I hate to even say it out loud, but I had a really bad experience with Theta, and I spent quite a bit of money. I mean, not a ton, but you know, a bunch. And I bought it at like $12.25, and now we looked it up the other day, and it's worth 20 cents. 20
I remember
cents.
That, yeah.
Yeah. But you know
Wow.
what? It's an opportunity for me to buy a bag inexpensively, and then I don't need it to go back up to $12.25. I only really need it to go up to 75 cents or $1, which is much more doable for me to get my money back quicker, right? And you know, so in any event, I mean, you know, so I kind of want to think, want your thoughts on that, and maybe give these people a little bit of inspiration. You know, turn that frown upside down, guys. What do you guys say?
Ida, do you want to go first?
Sure, why not? I think I think having a real good thought process when it comes to these ups and, up and down situations is very important. And I think that we've all been programmed a certain way when we look at these charts and things of that nature. I know we talk about it a lot. We're taught that red means stop and green or black means go, and we know from looking at those charts, when it's red, it's down, and that's your perfect buying opportunity when it's low. But people automatically see that, and their first thought process is to go on ahead and just cash out. And you don't lose until you cash out. You know what I mean? And this is a perfect example of it. This fear and greed index. At a 10, there's extreme fear. So people are going to try to hunker in. They're going to try to, to consolidate as much as possible, sell off what they can and get some value. The problem is that the value that they would have had, they've already lost in that moment, right? So you do yourself a disservice by selling at that point, especially if you have conviction in the asset, right? Now I get it. If it's something that's a fly by night or whatever else that has no utility, it's just sitting there like, dude, okay, I got it. And, I mean, to me, that's the only reason why I could see somebody selling that. And even in that, I've seen people hold things for a long time that are either meme coins or, things like that. They decide, okay, well, we want to do something and we want to put some utility behind it. And now it's shooting through the roof because they've done that, you know what I mean? In some way, whether they've worked, done a rework, they've, added to the actual coding that allows for them to have some type of utility, and from that vantage point, it's not going to be any more than the people that are in it that gives it the value anyway. So when it, I mean, I don't know. I have just a different view of like investing things. You know what I mean?
You don't lose unless you sell, right? That's the biggest point right here, guys. And so many people get into crypto and the price starts going down and they're new maybe. And, they panic and they think like, well, I don't want to lose all of my money. At least I'll just take a half hit. So maybe you put $500 into something and like, oh my gosh, now I've only got $300. I better sell it right now. Well, if you just hold on, as long as you're looking at projects that have a real world utility, the price is going to go back up. And like, that's what Lady K and I were talking about the other day is, these cycles go up and down and we've seen it happen time and time again. And, when you're coming into it and you're new and you see something drop like that, like me with Theta, if I would have sold, I would have sold at a severe loss and I'd be out. Now, here is my potential opportunity to buy a small bag. I don't have to buy a lot. I can buy a little. It's down 20 cents, which is like pitiful. But perhaps when things start picking back up again, now I do need to go back and research the project and say, like, is it dead for real? Or is this just, one of those things where it has potential to go back up to at least $1, right? Which I think it will. And then I can recoup my funds and then maybe actually make a little profit and then decide, do I want to stay in the project or do I want to get out? But if you just straight up sell because you're scared, you just did exactly what they wanted you to do, which was, we're going to pump this price up. And then you notice that the influencers will be like, buy this, buy that. Whoa, it's great. And then the prices start going down. And then they're like, oh, I'm quiet. I'm so quiet right now. I'm not talking about it. Or they're like, I'm selling my whole bag, so I'm getting out of crypto. Yeah, okay. So then they get you to sell your bag. And guess who's buying it?
Or if they even sold it.
Right. They didn't sell.
Because I don't think they do. I think they get paid to say that they did.
Yep. What do you think, Lady K?
I think Opti was going to go next, but I was remembering the monkey experiment.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about Opti.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, it's just that they literally did an experiment. They took a monkey and they had him throw darts as stocks, and they pick the stocks, and then this portfolio that the monkey throwing darts at actually outperformed the stockbrokers, right? And then, you know what's interesting? They actually recreated that, but with just the top stocks, and it didn't do as well. Why? Because it was it was the smaller
the penny
little
stocks
that really, and you just didn't pick those, you know, if you were looking, right? But throwing darts at, you know, the monkey, you know, picked them. So it's a hold will outperform trade, even if you know how to trade. And if you don't know how to trade, it definitely will outperform trade. Go ahead, Opti. Sorry.
Yeah, I was like, which monkey experiment? Because there's so many, you know, the 100 monkey rule, or like, you know, you teach one and how long it takes for like the whole community to learn. And then when does the collective consciousness, you know, expand over water barriers to other tribes of monkeys doing the same washing of potatoes, you know? It's so interesting how, so what was I going to say? I was going to say, you know me, I always say I think the distractions from ourselves. I think that, you know, for 2,000, 10,000, whatever amount of years you think we've been in this hell on earth scenario, they don't want the humans to know how powerful they are. They really don't. And while I believe they created this technology to enslave humanity and be able to control every last inch of our lives, it can only happen if you're not engaged, right? Like if you're not, if it's you know, even playing field, at this right now, and everybody has the opportunity to do something, you really don't want the humans doing anything. You want to set up all the traps first, and then you can let the humans back, you know, in. And so I think that part of it is the demoralization of the people to not feel empowered. I mean, I definitely see that in the truthing. That's what I've seen forever, is that the truthers are like, no, you know, like I will not go into crypto. And I'm like, hey guys, like I remember 4 or 5 years ago doing TikToks and be like, hey guys, like I don't know if I'm right, but like I just have this feeling and I'll feel really bad if I'm right. And I don't tell you, but I don't know. But I'm going to get into crypto and I'm going to go down this path and I'm going to see what's possible. And I'm going to try to find, you know, the words magical internet friends I have now, but back then I didn't. You know, people who just see what I see, that like, you know, together we can make a difference, and that, you know, our thoughts matter. That's another part of this whole thing that I've learned over the years is, you know, quantum physics, and, you know, the establishment of, you know, your thoughts actually really matter when it comes to the creation of the 3D world. And so I think that for me, I mean, people, when you can also think of like, you know, if this in any equation of like what stocks are like versus crypto, a lot of people who never have gotten into stocks have the opportunity to get into crypto. And so, you know, sometimes they're like, okay, if this is going to keep going down, I might as well sell now and then I'll buy back in when it's low. You know, that's a lot of the risk that I think the little guy who just needs an extra $1,000 or $10,000, like he's willing for that risk. You know, like, okay, it's dropping. Do I think it's going to go down 20 more cents? Do I think it's going to go down 50 more cents? Like if I sell now and then buy back down, then I'll get a little bit more, you know? So, you know, each of these things creates like a different snowball effect, right? And then you see like, as soon as it starts going back up, you know, oh no, okay, it's my opportunity. I got to get it now. You know, like how many people do we know that were setting buyback orders at as low amounts? So like in the back of their mind, they're still sort of hoping for it to drop, so that they can get in at a lower amount, so that they can accumulate a little bit more. So I think that, like, you know, there's just so much going on in terms of this shakeout and this cycle. I mean, obviously for me, I'm always optimistic about what's happening. And, you know, while people might be freaking out about finding out a lot of the truth that's happening right now, I mean, I think all four of us can say we've known the truth for quite some time. And so it's not affecting us. Honestly, I'm not looking at that except for like, man, how much longer do I have to wait until I get my Wix paid? You know, do I do it now or do I do it next week? You know, that's literally the conversation I had with myself this week. So when you decided to have this conversation, I was like, oh, has it dropped again? Like, I don't even know where we're at. I'm not even paying attention. You know, really, it doesn't bother me at all. Because I believe that we're headed somewhere magnanimous. And I think together we're trying to find all the people who believe that it's the people that win in the end. And, you know, I hope that the deletes all get tracked. I hope that, you know, all their nefarious deeds are being tracked and on the blockchain. And that I got, you know, that's why I got in. As I was like, I got nothing to be afraid of because I never did anything wrong. So I might as well get in. And if, you know, my dreams come true where justice will be seen in our lifetime, and those evil people who've been running the world for, you know, generations and generations see justice. And then, you know, the little guy, the meek will inherit the earth, I heard once upon a time, and have no fear.
Huh? Fear is a liar. Fear is a liar.
You know, it's interesting, right? Because like we talk about like we research a project, we like it, we buy into it, right? It might go up a little bit, whatever. And then it comes down with the rest of the market. But it takes so long to come down that it's like by the time you get there, it's like, gosh, I looked at that project a couple years ago. Is this still really doing what I thought it was going to do? Like you start like, you know, questioning yourself. Like there's no call to action. There's no motivation for you to buy in because you've already held it for so long and you've been waiting and nothing has happened. And that's all of them. By the way, that's all of them. If they haven't rugged yet, just keep waiting because they're all laying the foundation. They're all trying to execute their vision and do what they're trying to do. And it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. Yeah. And money moves in and out of these things right now, you know? And, you know, I always say, but if the foundation is strong, you know, a lot of these projects, you're not going to hear too much from them until they're ready, until it's go time. So it's like us early adopters that are stumbling upon these things that are even talking about them. And, you know, so when, you know, you get a little happy when it goes up to 25 cents, you're like, oh my gosh, it was at 3 cents, you know, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's at 3 cents again. You know, you're kind of like, oh, those are the times that I'm like, well, I guess I could have tried to sell it when it was up there. But then, you know, you always have to ask yourself, how much money do you have to invest? What is your goals? Why are you investing? How long do you have to wait? You know, if you've got a little bit of money that you can play around with, great. But you're taking a risk if you're taking your whole bag and doing moves like that, because you can get wrecked. And we are further down the road then we're further than we've ever been before. And these projects that are out there, you know, the big heavy hitter ones, even ones that you don't hear about, you know, even like the XDCs of the world, the Hedera's, the XLMs, you know, obviously XRP, right? But there's some really strong ones out there that are, I mean, pennies on the dollar, basically. Yeah. And if you take this time now to do your due diligence, dip your toe in, you could actually make some really good decisions for yourself, right?
Yeah, and even less than that, though, Melissa, as well. I mean, you know, you have your ZBEX and your strongholds, and you know, these are sub a penny. These aren't even a penny,
right?
You know. And these are, you know, and if they are going to do exactly what they say they're going to do, like ZBEC is talking about being paid by the second, you know, payroll, like that's what everybody needs is payroll,
real world utility.
And this coin is sub a penny, right? So then what's the excuse? Even if you throw $20 at it every now and again, you're still going to do well. You know what I'm saying? You're still going to do great. So you know what I mean? When it comes down to it, you know, that's where I see this. You know, people have to do their research. And I think what happens is that they get pulled into what everybody else is talking about instead of doing the research for themselves, taking a look at what it is. It doesn't mean you have to be techie, but you do have to think about, okay, does it have utility? Is it doing something? Does it make sense for me to do this? Is this something that's going to solve a problem for me? You know what I mean? When people look at stocks, they normally get stocks and things that they're using, things that they purchase. That's normally the rule of thumb. You know what I mean? Look at your everyday life and the things that you actually use and actually consume. That those are the things that you should buy stocks in.
You want to know what, Keita?
Mm.
And this is actually a good transition to kind of circle us back to just where we're at with it. Do we think they're affecting? They're trying to manipulate us out of these things. And I remember when I first got into crypto, was particularly the Bitcoin people. You know what they all said? It is not like stocks. It is not like stocks. It's not an investment. It's this, it's that. Okay.
Oh,
right?
that's where that
it
comes
was
from.
all, no, it's not. It's not. And what would you do if it was a stock? Just what you said. You'd invest in things that you use. You would look into the companies, figure out what they're doing, right? But the early narrative with crypto, and Bitcoin was the early narrative, was this is not stocks, you know. It's not stocks. It's not stocks. So the people that don't, know about these types of things, they're like, well, I'm confused. Like, what even is it? They don't even look at it as an investment, when all along you should have been looking at what was being built and looking at the connections and all of those types of things. So,
and not only that, I mean, just the fact that they utilize the stem of crypto. That's not a positive connotation.
Yeah.
There's nothing positive about something being cryptic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It means that you're trying to elude people, that you are trying to hide things. So that also gives a certain thought process that people aren't going to want to be involved with.
I'm going to throw something out there with that too, is that years ago I heard crypt as in dead people's money, and then if you go back to the living and the maritime law and all that we're coming back into the living. So that's why digital asset, I prefer the word digital asset. I know we haven't finished up, but I needed to throw that out there.
No, and I know we're about to hop off of here, but that is the main reason why I tend to really get into, please make sure that you're using the right verbiage, okay? Because digital assets are going to be regulated. You can already see this right now. Cryptocurrencies aren't. And I think that that's where we're going to start to see that divide.
Lady K, final thoughts?
Just be patient. If it is causing you any negative feelings, take a break from Twitter and don't look at your portfolio, and go spend time with your family. Come back in a couple months. I assure you the market will have changed.
Ah, absolutely.
I like that.
I want to thank everybody. I did put the link. I'm going to post it one more time. Please join us in the After Dark space at 10:10 on X. We have 160 people watching this evening. Thank you so much. Shout out to Silver Days and True to Call. Who else we got in here? Gone Rogue.
Nerdy is in here.
Nerdy. Queen.
Florida Man Landscaping, DCA, Crypto Dave, Marvin Daniels, Connie is in here. Awesome Amy. We've got Mad Killa 710 that's in here this evening. Mad Killa. We've got Susan Roblin in the house. That's always a pleasure to see her. Brent Staple is here.
Oh.
Yep, he sure is. Silver
DCA
Dave.
Crypto Dave. That's nice. We love you
and
guys.
We also had we also had a brand new subscriber today, and Mike Laugh. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful show.
It has, guys. So yeah, please come over to the After Space, the After Dark Space. It starts at 10:10. Ladies, this has been a fantastic conversation. As Zerny said, the show went by super fast, but that's how it goes in crypto and Digital Ladies Unscripted. We will see you guys next week on Monday. Have a good rest of the evening and join us over in the After Space. Thank you. Well, let's go.
Digital ladies breaking the chain, rising in crypto, we're changing the game. Crypto frontier, we're claiming our space. Not your keys, not your crypto. Know your place. Unscripted, we're bold.
ignite now, we're setting the mark.
Safety first, we're keeping